Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll start the Avodah Zarah daf Ayin Hey. We are going to begin on Ayin Hey Amud Aleph, the third line from the top with the word Itmar. So we were learning in yesterday's daf that when it comes to a wine press, it depends what the wine press is made out of. If it's out of even, if it's stone, if it's eitz wood, or cheres, exactly what the purification process is. Also, whether or not it's a case where it's shizafta, where it was pitched, or whether or not it was smooth, or it's possible that when it was stepped upon, the grapes caused this extra pressure onto these grapes, making it harder for that to get out, and therefore it may be necessary to peel off the pitch. Okay, so those are all like different opinions as we were talking about in yesterday's daf. So Idmar, Beira Mishmei Mishmei the Rav Amri, they said that Tartiu Tlos. So as we mentioned in yesterday's daf, that you need to possibly put ash and then water, or perhaps go straight to water. Depends on we're talking about. If it's moist or if it's dry. So if it's dry, you can just immediately apply the water first, and then afterwards the ash. But in the event that it was moist already, so then you put the ash first. The question is, how many times does this have to take place? So Rashi says, B'retivta, if it was moist, tarti afer mayim. So we do 2 ashes and then a water, because again, you start off with an ash application, then water, then ash. Biabashda tlos, when it's dry, so then you need 3. First of all, mayim v'afer mayim. It's because when, as you said, when it's dry, so you start off with water application, and then afer, and then mayim. Okay, that's how it's interpreted. Shmuel emer tlos v'arba. Tlos boy. So says Rashi, tlos b'retivta. If it's moist, then you apply afer or mayim v'afer. V'afer b'shechayz v'nois and mayim, even though you're putting water again, l'haver ha'afer, to remove the ash. Hanhu mayim lu kachashiv. That second application of water doesn't count. Dolam l'shum negiva elwin kaisim and afer. It's not because it's a part of the kashrus or purification process. It's just stopped to clean it off from the ashes. The dalbi abashta, and again, when it's dry, in that situation, as we said, you apply water first. So you do mayim offer, mayim v'offer. Okay. And it says, mayim basroi lo chashiva. All right. As we said, that the next application of water is only in order to remove the ash. Well, that's not part of the purification process, even though someone may do that. Besur masti hachim. Pumadista masti be'rav, aymer mishmei rab. Toss our boy, 3 or 4, depending if it's moist or dry. Shmuel Amar Arboy Chamesh. Actually, 4 or 5. V'lo pligi, Marka Chashiv Mai Basroi, Mar Lo Chashiv Mai Basroi. So if you want to call 5, so again, the case of water, ash, but we do again remove the water, the ash again by water, but it's really for cleansing, it's not for purification. So if you include the last application of water, then in fact it would be 5 times. If you don't include it, then it would be 4, so they're not really arguing. Bomine Rabavoy, Hani Gurni Duramoy Mai. What is the din when we're dealing with these Gurgi da Armoy? So Rashi says, this is referring to akloyim. These are these beams that are laden with items. The karuchen oisen sevivos hatapuach, and it's bent around the tapuach. And then Rashi says, "Kagayin va'akol beis abad oisun kmin kupa misugeres mamatsuda." It's like the same mechanism that's used like to catch fish. After we squeeze the olives, noisen hagefes va'isa akil. So then it's put into this beam, which is like again made of like lattice work. Fine. So that's what it's basically referring to. So you have this type of netting. It's basically what it is. Some type of a net for like trapping fish. What is the din? So basically the question is, what is the halachic status of this? So Emily Rabbi Avo Tinisui learn Hari Shohayu Gitov Obeis Badov Tamein. Let's say you have the olive press or a wine press, and they are tamei, and you want to be able to purify it. So we look at each part maybe differently. First of all, hadapim, the boards, v'hadashin, and the press, v'halulavin, and also the brooms that are used for the sweeping, medichan. So you basically just clean them off with water, says Rashi. V'al mishnazu yesh lismach she'en sarach afro lagas. You don't need to apply any ashes. All you need to is just rinse it off. All you need to do is just rinse it off, and that's sufficient. However, when it comes to the netting, it depends what it's made out of. Shel nitzrin v'shel tzavoitz, then menagmon. So if it's made out of some type of wicker nut or tzavoitz, Rashi says canvus. So canvas in which absorbs a bit more. So you need niguv, which is again offer and mayim. There, rinsing is not enough. You need to do the ash application as well. However, v'shel shifa v'shel gemi, which is even more absorbent material. So miyashin yud beis chodesh. So we say that there's a 12-month period of time that one must wait in order to be able to use it. You can take it from one gas to the other, or from one bod to the next. So what exactly is that referring to? So let's see if there's a Rashi on this. So it's can be transported from one to the next, which means that from one time to another. So hainu tanakama l'chayra, from one wine press season to another wine press season is really the same as 12 months. So you could be chorpi v'afli. So the difference is when things come a little bit earlier or later. Says Rashi, megas lagas pamim shoy yois miyud beis chodesh. Diafli, maybe from one season to the next, it could be more than 12 months. It could be later. Upamim shein pachais could go in becharpi. Let's say it's possible that it could come earlier than 12 months. So one says it's always 12 months. The other one says no, it all depends on when everything takes place. So that's the nafkamina chorpi v'afli. Says question number 12. We wait for 12 months. Shmuel says you go to each from one season, one pressing season to the next, which really is also 12 months. So again, question 12. Okay, so it's not always exactly 12 months, so therefore there is a difference in opinion. So that's all. You can wait for a long time, or if you want to purify it right away, so magilin b'reitzkin. So you could wash it with hot water, or you can scald it with olive liquid, and that is a way of purifying it quicker. It says Rashi, derech levashul zeisim v'yosurachin l'haitzi shoimnon, that they used to cook the olives to get soft so that the oils or fattiness should be able to come out. Okay, so Rav Shimon Gamliel, Mishum Rav Yosi Aimer, Menichan Tachas Sinor, would actually put it by a pipe, Shemiyamav Mikalchen, that in its days is dripping. Oh, B'me'en Shebemem of Raidfin, that it's known for its flowing nature. V'kama Oina, so how long is the Oina? V'kama Oina, so Kadesh Yomru B'yainesach Kacham B'taharas. So the din is that it needs to be immersed in this liquid for a period of Ona, which typically is 12 hours, but Rashi says, okay, so we'll hold off on that. So Klapulaya, but Tahara is Kaiminan. We're discussing Tahara. So what does it mean? Just like by Yain Nesach, so too by Tahara. So what do you mean? We've been just talking about Tahara, about how to purify it, and you should therefore say, just like we went by Tahara, so too by Yain Nesach. Should be the other way around. El Kadeshim, but Tahara is Kachamer by Yain Nesach, you're right. So Kama, how long does that have to be in this liquid for Ona? So Rabbi Chia Barabo and Rabbi Yochanan, O Yoim O Laila. It's either a day or a night. That's how it's interpreted. A day or a night. Rav Chana She'ena, Rav Chana She'ena, V'yamel some say Rav Chana Bar She'ena, Omer Rabba Bar Chana Rabbi Yochanan, Chatzi Yom V'Chatzi Laila. It's referring to half a day and half a night. That's what it's referring to. That's no. So Rav Shimon Bar Yitzchak Lo Pligi, Hab Tekufas Nisan V'Tishrei, Hab Tekufas Tammuz V'Teves. So if we're dealing with, let's say, the equinox, right, which is like June 21st, December 21st, which corresponds to Tammuz and Teves. So indeed, so the day and the night are the exact same amount of time. So that's why we say Chatzi Yom Chatzi Laila. However, if we're in the middle of Tekufas Nisan, I said the wrong way. Nisan and Tishrei is when it's the solstice, right? Which is like March and September. Okay, June rather. Okay, March and September. That's what I meant to say. Okay, so let's take a step back. Okay, we know that the shortest day of the year, which is winter solstice, is in December. And we know that the longest day of the year is the summer solstice, which is in June, which corresponds to what we call Tekufas Tammuz V'Teves. So during those times, so we'll employ the 12-hour time, right? Chatzi Yom Chatzi Laila, okay? However, if we're dealing with the time in which it's the equinox, which is Nisan and Tishrei, right, which can correspond to like March and September. So in those times, that's how long it is, because the day and the night are the same. So that's what it means. Habedekufas Tammuz V'Teves. Okay, let's look at question 13, and this is what he says. Kama Eina. So one says O Yom O Laila, and the other one says Chatzi Yom Chatzi Laila. So how do you explain these shittas? So the one who says or day or night, it's referring to Kufas Nisan V'Tishrei, because those hours again are exact, right? It's like this. It's the equinox. The one who says Chatzi Yom Chatzi Laila is to Kufas Tammuz V'Teves, in which we're talking about where the amount of time is much shorter, and therefore in the winter solstice, and therefore it has a much shorter daytime. Or when we're talking about in the Tekufas Tammuz, in which you have the longest day, the summer solstice, and therefore you have you have only a short nighttime. Says Rashi, the Tekufas Nisan V'Tishrei, Shayoim V'Laila Shovin, right? It's the equinox. O Yom V'Laila. The Tekufas Tammuz V'Teves She'en Yom V'Laila Shovin. They're not equal. So we say Chatzi Yoim V'Chatzi Laila. Yud Beis Shais Shleimus Be'inon, because it has to be 12 full hours. Okay, and this is the same question as TA 27 and TB 29. Mom's the same thing. What did I write? Let's see. Yom o Laila, Chatzi Yom o Chatzi Laila. V'zet toli im Tekufas Nisan V'Tishrei Shomim Hem Shavim, but Tekufas Tammuz She'oz Yesh Rak Chatzi Yom. Okay, it's not bad. Let's see if TC asks the same question. No. Okay, let's keep going. So Omer Rabbi Yehuda, Hani Ravki Darmoy, which is like the sediment sacks, which Rashi says, let's see, the Ravki d'Armoy. Let's see if there's a Rashi on this. Yeah, so Mishmeret, Rashi says, is referring to sediments. Kmin sakin shinois mehem shimorim u'haitzis esyenam. That they put this into sacks to be able to remove the wine. So it depends. Dim maziam, says Rashi, shel seir adam. If it's made out of hair, which does not absorb very well, so medichin, all you need to do is hadacha, you just rinse it off and that's it. The arma, but if it's made out of wool, which is more absorbent, then menagban, which includes the ashes. The kisna, if we're dealing with linen, in which absorbs more than wool, then miyashnan. So in that situation, you have to wait a longer period of time. The kitri, if there's knots, sharluhu, then it's necessary for you to untie them. Hani dekule v'chalata. So Rashi says a kaver shel shvatim mitzainin behen yayin. So it's this type of hive or whatnot, literally, and which is a strainer for wine. So v'chalata de armoy. So dechiti, if it's these particular fibers b'chavli detzori medichin. So again, it's basically sewn with these particular fibers. So in that case, all you need to do is hadacha, detzori medichin, and that would be sufficient. As we continue, ayin ham and base. The tzavta menagvan, if it's made out of Rashi's mingemi, which is a little bit more absorbent, so therefore it needs the ashes. The kisna with linen, which is even more miyashna, as we said before. Navi'is v'hu kitri, if there's not sharil, you have to untie them. Idmar amar shehoishit yodol gas. Let's say you have an amar that stuck his hand into the press. V'naga bash koilois, and ended up touching the clusters of grapes. So Rabbi Rav Chia imer chada imer eshkol v'chol sevivo tamein. Since he's not shomer and careful of the dinim of Tumat Tahara, so we say that it's tamei and everything around it. However, chol gas kula tahara. However, there's an interesting kula that they say that the vat itself is tahar. However, chada imer kol gas kula nami tameya. That not. They don't argue about anything about the other things, but even the gas, even the vat is tamei. The fact that the vat is tahar, how do you reconcile that which we learned? It says regarding a sheretz, shenimsa b'reichayim, that's found in this mill where they grind the grinder for olives. So it says it only has the capacity of matama, the place it touches. If it's a liquid, mahalik, and it's going through, it's like spilling out, then hakol tameh. So we see everything is tameh. So how could he say that the gas is tahara? Well, we see it beferish, it's tameh. Tohasam lo masik, v'loy midi, hacha masik eshkalois. So it depends if there is a hefsek or not. So in the event that, like here, where there is a stoppage, if you will, of other clusters, so that's the reason why the din changes. But if there's no, the low masik will mean, then the din would be different. All your lay, Rabban Rabbi Yomi Ramosam will bered Rabbi Yomi Divrei Haimer Eshka B'Chosevil Tamein B'Chol Kul Tahira. So again, it's possible that it is tahar. So again, with regard to clusters are considered maybe independent from others. So maybe not everything else is tameh. Okay, says the next Mishnah. Says the Mastis. A person who takes a vessel, which is typically for various uses, and they take it from the oivdi kachavim. So it depends. Eshedarkil hatbil, if it's something which is typical to immerse. In other words, in a mikvah, which means in something which is cold. Alidate Saini and Rashi says yatbil. So all you have to do is immerse it, right? Because since it was used for cold, all you need to do is something cold in bitoivel, and that's it. Lahagil yagil. However, let's say it was used for something hot, so therefore you have to do hagala, as it's called. You submerge it completely into boiling hot water. Lavin b'or, yulam b'or. If for whatever reason it was used with fire, so therefore you have to kosher it the same way. So basically, whatever happened to it, you have to do the same thing to kosher it. Okay, so that's the din. Now hashvud va'askava, when it comes to either a spit where they put meat on it and it goes directly onto the fire, or a grill for that matter, malavnon. So you have to do libun. You have to actually use like a blowtorch, if you will, or. And then the Mishnah concludes hasochin shafa v'hi tahara, that when it comes to a sakin, when it comes to a knife, all you need to do is have it scraped by the smith, and then it becomes tahara. It says the Gemara, Tanabekuan srichin tefila, bar boim saw. Even after you did libun or hagala, whatever it is, you still have to immerse any kli that you took from an akum has to be going to the mikvah, which is, of course, what we're familiar with. So, so what happens? You have to do, as the pasuk says, whatever happened to it. So if it was used for on a fire by an akum, so you have to also be matar with fire, and that's the same thing. But kasev tahara cheres, they add on an extra tahara in addition to the fact that you brought it to the mikveh. But in addition to the fact that you used it, let's say fire, you did libun or hagala, it's v'tahir. To kasher it completely, you also need to submerge it in the mikvah. So Tanim bar kapara mitayich shenamar, the pasuk says b'mei nida shameani shetzarach hazah shlish shvi. It tells you that these kalim may actually need the special sprinkling on days 3 and 7, which of course we don't require. Talmud over ach. So the pasuk ach is coming to tell you, no, that much you don't need. It's true you need a mikvah, but you don't need the entirety of the tahara of having to be sprinkled with the mechatas, with a paraduma on day 3 and 7. So you came out to Malabra Meini, the Mayim Shenida Toivelos Mehen Haviyomer Boyim Saw. It's referring to what it says Nida. What does it need to do? She goes to a mikvah, right? And that's what's necessary as well. Okay, fine. So in this thing where it says, so Isra Chamichta V'Tahir, we need an extra word in the pasuk called V'Tahir to teach us this din. The Isra Chamichta V'Meinida. Why? So Ikasa V'Tahir, if you all you had was V'Tahir, and that's it, Havamina V'Tahir Koldahu. You would think maybe it can become purified in any way. Kasarach, maybe with with a Tisha Kab, and I don't know. So Kasarach Mada Meinida. The fact that it says Meinida to tell you that just like Meinida we need Arbaim sauce, so to this. The Kasarach Mada Meinida Havamina Erev Shemesh Kanida. That you would think you also need Erev Shemesh. That's the reason why a woman has to first wait until it's dark and then go to the mikvah, because after she counts the 7 days of cleanliness, she needs the Erev Shemesh to then that night go to the mikvah. So maybe you would think that in this case also it's necessary to have Erev Shemesh. Kasar Rachman of a Tahir will alter, which means you can immerse it right away. It's not necessary for you to wait until the evening to do it. Okay, let's look at question 14. Well, my Israch Beis Kroi, Lamet Tfila Kli Akum, since it's V'Tahir and also B'mei Nida. So first of all, V'Tahir comes to tell you that it needs to be like a mikvah, Arboim saw. And the other pasuk is to tell you that you don't need Erev Shemesh, even though a Nida requires Erev Shemesh, but this person does not. Question T, C. Okay, we didn't do that. Okay, let's keep going. So when it says that you need to be toivel dishes or whatnot, it's even if they're new. So what happens? They're old, and once you do libun on them, it's like it's new damu. It's like this. It's brand new because you kashed it. It's like good as new. So just like an item which you take from an akum, which is old, but when you kasher, it's as new, and therefore nonetheless the Torah requires you to be toivel it. So too, if you buy a brand new kli from an akum, it's the same din. So Maskav Rav Sheshes Yihachi, I feel Zuza Tsar Bulanami. then maybe also the scissors of a garment maker should also have the same chiyuv. Says Rashi, hamisparayim she goizim ahen bigdi tzemer, right? So it's exersa kosev. Maybe for whatever reason you always have to kasher everything. So amalei kli suda reading beparsha. The only thing that you have to kasher, you have to be toivel, is something that's going to be used for a meal. Kli suda. However, scissors don't need to be toivel in mikvah because they're not kli suda. Rav Nachman Rabbi Boravua lo shanu el b'loikchen. The only time there's a requirement to be toivel in the mikveh, your kalim from an akum, is only if you bought them from him. Ukamasa shahaya. But if you borrow the kalim, then it is not necessary. It says Rashi, Kli Sudam Reading Beparsha Tichsiv, Kol Davar Sher Yavu Be'esh. Anything was used with fire. Vein Derech Lishtamish Alidea or El Kalim Shel Sarachit Suda. What would you put into fire, right? Fire is destructive. So what is used in fire? Kalim for cooking, right? So that's what the pasuk is coming to tell you. Come to exclude scissors. That's not necessary. Fine. So, and again, when it comes to borrowing, it is that you're not mechuyev to toivel. Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef Zavin Mana de Marda. So he was engaged in a transaction with regard to getting a kli. Says Rashi, which is Adama is earth, Vitsafi bakar, and also dung. It was like cattle dung. Muravin v'oisin mehem kli. So with earth and animal dung, that's how they were able to make this kli. And he got this ma'ovid kachavim. He bought it from ma'ovid kachavim. So Savar will have to be able. So he thought, of course, he had to be toivel. Amalei ha'umar rabbanim Rabbi Yaakov Shemei l'didim afarshali minei to Rabbi Yochanan. It was told to me that kli mateches amrinim b'parsha. The only time it's necessary to toivel is davka when you get something from an akum, which is kli matches, which is made out of metal, right? That's what's required. Because the pasuk says, achas hazahav, zahav, kesef, these are all metal. So only something which is kli matches. You buy a metal container, yes. So Rav Ashi, hani kli sechuches, when it comes to a glass keli, so maybe you don't have to be toivel it. So hoyel v'chin ishtabri yeshon etakana kli matches damu. There is a takana, just like kli matches, you can always kasher it. So too kli sechuches. If it breaks, you can always refashion it. And therefore, it has the same din. And therefore, by kli sechuches, there's also a chiyuv to have to be toivel it. Okay, we're looking question TC30. Madua kli sechuches tu'un tefillah. So here we go. So this is the last question, question 30. Hoyel v'chin nishbru yesham takana kli matchos damu. Right? So it can be broken and it can be fixed and changed, and therefore it has the same status as kli as a kli matchos. And therefore, gold has to glass rather has to be toivel just as a metal kli. Okay. How about kunya? So on this, Rashi says kunya is it says plumery, which is some type of a plated kli, right? Which has some type of glaze on the kli. It says Rashi techilaso shel cheres. It's originally out of like earthenware. The chayf b'noisa b'chufia shel aver, but you put some type of a metal or lead over it. So on this, the Gemara says as follows, with regard to like a glazed kli, pligi bo ravacha v'ravina chadaimer ketchilaso chadaimer kasayfai. The hilchasa kasayfo. The halacha is like the end. So one says it's tchilaso the way it was originally, which is cheres, and doesn't need tefillah because it's not a kli mateches. Kli cheres does not need tefillah. Or maybe we'll go at the end. Since it was plated with something which is metallic, so therefore it does need tefillah. And the answer is, in fact, it does need tefillah. So things which are glazed, apparently the halach is that it does need tefillah. So you boil who? Mashkantamai. What's the din? So we said if you buy it, yes, you have to be toivel it. If you borrow it from the akim, you don't. How about what if it's a mashkain, that he gives it to you as collateral? So Mar Baravashi Abba Mashkin Lav Kachavim, Kasa de Kasma. There was this collateral, which was from an akum, and it was a silver goblet. The Atbule, and he actually immersed it. He did do tefillah with it, even though it was a mashkin. Ve'ishtibin, and he used it to drink. V'lo yadanu, I'm not sure why. Mishum de kasaver mashkanta kazvini dami. It's kind of almost like a sale. Mishum de chazav v'kachavim de daita lashkuye. That it gave him the impression by this akum that he was going to leave this mashkin by him forever, and therefore that's the reason why he was taiva. So I was unsure why. So we're not 100% sure in a typical mashkon what the din would be. Tanaban halokeach kli. Tashmish min kachavim. Let's say a person again purchases a kli from an akum. So devarim shlo nishtamish behen. So if it's something that hasn't been used, mat bielin behen tahirin. All you have to do is just, you should still be toivel. It doesn't matter if it's a new kli, but if you got it from an akum, you still have to be toivel it. Devarim nishtamish behen. Let's say the akum used it, so I did sign it. If it was cold, can go in kaisais, the sani ice, or suchay ice. So sometimes the different cups or flasks, you only put cold liquids into it. So medichin umatbilin vehin tahirin. So you have to rinse it off. Obviously, there's an element of making sure it has to be clean, and then the koshering takes place. But then you rinse it off, and that's good enough. And you toivel it. So again, the fact that it was used, but it was cold, so it didn't really absorb anything. Therefore, all you have to do is rinse it off. We just don't want to have any residue, which is of Isser on it. The varm shenishtamesh min alei cham, and it was hot, can go in hayoyis hakum kamoinais. So if you have pots or like something or hot water kettle of sorts, machami chamin, or like something like an urn. So magilin matbilin vehin tahirin. So in this situation, because it was used for hot, so you have to be toivel, you have to kasher it with hot. Namely, you have to immerse it into something boiling hot, and then you put it into the mikvah, and then it's tar. Or things that were used for fire could go in hashvudim, like Ramisha said, vaskolois, either let's say a spit or a grill. So then again, you have to do libun. You have to fight fire with fire. And all of them that were used, let's get that again. So in all of them, you can use them ad shlo yatbil before your table yalben. Okay, so let's just see if there's a Rashi on that. Okay, so tani chada aser v'tani idach mutter. The kash is, what do you do in this situation where you actually used it, but you weren't toivel, you didn't do a gala, you didn't do liban. So now what? So what's the status of that product, that food, let's say, that was in it? So one says it's also, one says it's mutter. So it makes sense why it would be aser, because you were supposed to do liban, and you instead used the kli, which is not kosher. Tanirach mutter, so kasha. Ha kamandi omer neisen tamagam aser. Ha kamandi omer neisen tamagam mutter. So even though again you were supposed to kasher it, but we say that the kli was poigam anyway, so therefore we say it's still okay. Well, mandi omer neisen tamagam mutter. Even though one who says it's allowed, so then why do we ever aser the kalim of an akum? So Rav Chiba to Rav Huna will also tara el b'kadeira, as we continue to ayin vav and aleph bas yomo the lav noisen talma begamhu. Because the problem is the first 24 hours, we say, if let's say the akum used it, within the first 24 hours, that which is boiled into the kli is not noisen talma pagam, and therefore because of that, that's where the problem arises. So mikan ve'el lishtri. So l'chayra, that should mean if it's not 24 hours, then the kli should just be totally fine. You shouldn't have to kasher at all because it's nice talmagam. So Gemara says you're right. The reason why we toivel the dishes and the reason why we do all this is gezerah kedera she'enu bas yomi mishum kedera bas yomi, because we're geyser atu. Because technically, you're right. If it's not a ben yoimo, so it's not talmagam, and therefore it shouldn't be a problem. But because before, when is a ben yoimai, it's still an issue. So therefore, geyser atu, and therefore that's the reason why we have all these restrictions, and they have to do all this kashering and everything like that. The ido one who says the noisan tam that noisan tam gam is aser, is mutter. The ido kader bas yoimin nami mifgam pagma. So he says that no, the truth is, even when it's a bas yoimai, even after, even while it's a bas yoimai, that was within the 24 period of time, it's still considered to be paigam. Okay, let's look at this Taisus. Bas yoimai perish bekuntris shebishul bo avikachavim hayoim. They used it that day. Avim bishul bo etzmo. If you used it yesterday, kvar hufag taimo. Belinas Laila, the fact that the night went and it's a new day, so it's fine. Mashma del Perushu Dinilu Laila Pogemis will be in Esel Ace. So it's an interesting lashon of Rashi that Tosfos points out that maybe you don't need 20 Bas Yoma doesn't mean 24 hours. It just is like Lina is the fact that the night went by. So it's an interesting shita that maybe you can read Rashi that again, it's not totally on 24 hours, but maybe it's totally on the fact that it was overnight, and therefore even if it hasn't been 24 hours, maybe it's no longer bas yoimai ayin taisus. Okay, we're gonna obviously stop there. Let's maybe see one more question. Says so we saw TA 27 of how long is the oinah. So it depends if it was Tukufas Nisan and Tishrei, is Yom Laila, Tukufas Tammuz and Teves, is Chatzi Yom Chatzi Laila, which was the same thing as TB 28, I think it was. TB 29 rather. Fine. Gabi Kochim Shud Asko Megal B'Chamin. Okay. That we didn't get to. We'll do that in tomorrow's daf. Adkan.